The market square of Thornhaven smelled of smoke and fear. Alara kept to the edges of the crowd, her gloved hands clasped against her chest, her hood drawn low over her face. She hated coming to town, hated the press of bodies, the careless elbows, and the constant threat of accidental contact. But Wren needed medicine, and the apothecary in Thornhaven was the only one who stocked moonpetal root. "Stay close to me," she murmured to her younger sister. "And whatever happens, don't let anyone touch me." Wren nodded solemnly. At 12 years old, she understood the curse better than anyone. She'd seen what happened when skin met skin. She'd been the one to drag Alara's unconscious body home more times than either of them cared to count. The crowd ahead had thickened into a wall of bodies, all straining toward something in the square's center. Alara tried to skirt around them, but Wren tugged at her sleeve. "Alara, look." Against her better judgment, Alara looked. A wooden platform had been erected before the magistrate's hall, the kind used for public punishments and executions. Chains hung from a central post, and in those chains stood a man unlike any Alara had ever seen. He was enormous. Even hunched against the iron binding his wrists above his head, he towered over Lord Aldrich, who stood beside him with a ceremonial sword. His dark hair hung in matted tangles across his face, and his bare torso was a canvas of wounds, both fresh and healing cuts and bruises that spoke of rough treatment during his capture. But it was his stillness that struck her most, that preternatural calm of a predator conserving strength, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. "Citizens of Thornhaven," Lord Aldrich's voice rang across the square. "Before you stands Theron Varick, Alpha King of the Fenrith Wolves, captured at last after a decade of terrorizing our borders." A murmur rippled through the crowd. Alara felt Wren press closer to her side. "The Crown has decreed that enemy alphas may be ransomed by their packs," Aldrich continued, his thin lips curling with satisfaction. "His wolves were given 7 days to deliver payment. Today marks the 7th day. No gold has come." Alara found herself pushing forward, drawn by something she couldn't name. She shouldn't care. This man was a wolf, one of the beasts that supposedly stalked the northern territories and devoured travelers whole. But as she drew closer, she saw his eyes lift to scan the crowd, and her breath caught. They were the color of aged amber, flecked with gold, and they held no fear whatsoever. Only cold, calculating patience, the look of a king who had not yet accepted his defeat. "Per the king's law," Aldrich announced, "an unclaimed prisoner becomes property of the crown. He will be transported to the capital for execution at the next blood moon, unless someone wishes to purchase his labor. The crown will accept 8 gold pieces." Laughter erupted from the crowd. "8 gold for a monster?" someone shouted. "I'd sooner buy my own grave." A stone sailed through the air, striking the prisoner's shoulder. He didn't flinch. Another followed, then another. The crowd's energy shifted from curiosity to cruelty, and Alara felt bile rise in her throat. More stones, more jeering. And through it all, the Alpha King stood motionless, bleeding from a dozen small cuts, his gaze fixed on some distant point beyond the hatred. Then Alara saw the wound. Not the fresh cuts from the stones, but something on his left side, just below his ribs. The flesh there was wrong, discolored with veins of deep crimson that spread like poison across his skin. She could see it pulsing, growing, and consuming him from within. "He's dying," she realized. "Whatever that wound is, it's killing him, and no one here cares." 4 gold pieces, Aldrich amended as no bids came. Surely someone can use a strong back. Alara should have walked away, should have grabbed Wren and fled back to their cottage, but her feet carried her forward instead, drawn by that strange pull she couldn't explain. She was so focused on reaching the platform that she didn't see the merchant step backward into her path. His bare hand brushed against her cheek. The world vanished. Alara woke to warmth. Not the cold ground of the market square, not Wren's frantic shaking, but warmth steady and strong, cupping her face like something precious. It radiated through her skin, chasing away the familiar darkness that usually followed any touch. Her eyes fluttered open. The Alpha King was crouching over her, his massive hands cradling her jaw. His chains somehow extended enough to reach where she'd fallen. Those amber eyes stared down at her, close enough that she could see the flecks of gold within them, close enough that she could feel his breath against her skin. She was awake. His hands were on her bare skin, and she was awake. "That's impossible," she whispered. The Alpha King's brow furrowed at her words, not understanding, but something flickered in his gaze. Recognition, perhaps, or wonder, as if he, too, sensed that something extraordinary had just occurred. "Get away from her," Wren's voice cut through the fog. "Don't touch my sister." But Alara's hand shot up to grip his wrist before he could pull away. His skin was fever-hot beneath her fingers, his pulse hammering against her palm. And still, impossibly, she remained conscious. 15 years. 15 years since the curse had taken hold, since any human touch had done anything but send her plummeting into darkness. And now this stranger, this wolf, this enemy of her kingdom, held her face in his hands, and she felt more awake than she had in her entire life. 8 gold pieces, she heard herself say. The chaos around her went silent. What? Lord Aldrich's voice cracked with disbelief. Elara rose to her feet, her legs unsteady but her voice clear. You said 8 gold pieces for his service. I'll pay it. You? The cursed woman from the moors? I have what my mother left me. Elara reached into the pouch hidden beneath her cloak and withdrew the coins, one by one. 8 gold pieces. I claim him according to the law. This is absurd. I won't allow. The law is clear, Lord Aldrich. You offered him for sale. Unless you intend to break the king's own decree in front of all these witnesses? Aldrich's face purpled with rage, but the crowd had grown hushed, watching with hungry eyes. He couldn't refuse, not publicly. So be it, he spat, snatching the coins. But when he tears out your throat, don't expect anyone to mourn you. Unchain the beast, she's bought herself a death sentence. Elara turned back to the Alpha King. Up close, she could see the full extent of his condition, the sunken cheeks, the trembling muscles, that terrible wound spreading across his side. He was watching her with an expression she couldn't read. Not gratitude, exactly. Something deeper. Can you walk? She asked softly. He spoke then, his voice a low rumble that seemed to resonate in her very bones. The words were foreign, liquid, and ancient. Elara held out her hand. The Alpha King stared at it for a long moment. Then, slowly, he took it. His palm was rough with calluses, his fingers long enough to engulf hers completely, and where their skin touched, Elara felt warmth spread up her arm and bloom through her chest, utterly unlike the cold darkness that usually followed contact. Come, she said, though she knew he couldn't understand. Let's get you home. The path to Elara's cottage wound through marshland and thistle, a route she'd chosen years ago precisely because it discouraged visitors. Now, struggling to support the weight of a half-conscious Alpha King, she cursed her own paranoia. Just a little further, she murmured, though Theron's eyes had glazed over, and she doubted he could hear her. His arm was draped across her shoulders, heavy as iron, and with each step he leaned more heavily against her side. But he was touching her, his bare arm against her neck, his hip brushing hers with every labored stride, and she remained awake, aware, and alive in a way she hadn't felt since she was 7 years old, and the curse had first taken hold. Elara. Ren appeared at her other side, small hands reaching up to help steady the enormous man between them. His wound is getting worse. Look. Elara looked, her stomach turned. The crimson veins had spread further in just the short time since they'd left the square. They now crept up toward his heart, pulsing with a sickly rhythm that seemed to beat in opposition to his actual pulse. What kind of poison does that? Ren whispered. I don't know. And that terrified her. Elara had studied healing since childhood from her mother, from books, from traveling healers. She knew poisons, but this was something else entirely. This felt wrong on a level that went beyond medicine. The cottage appeared through the mist. Home, safety, or what passed for it. They were 10 paces from the door when Theron stopped walking. His eyes had cleared slightly, staring at the cottage with intensity, then shifting to the forest beyond the dark line of trees marking the northern territories. No, Elara said firmly. She could see the calculation in his eyes, measuring the distance to the tree line. You won't make it. You'll die before you reach the first ridge. She released his arm and stepped back. If you want to run, run. But whatever's killing you, it's spreading fast. By nightfall, it'll reach your heart. Theron's jaw tightened. For a moment, they simply stared at each other, the cursed healer and the Wolf King, both trapped by circumstances neither had chosen. Then his legs buckled. Elara lunged forward, catching him before he hit the ground. His skin was burning now, fever-hot, and his breath came in shallow gasps. Ren, help me get him inside. Together, they dragged him through the doorway and onto the pallet by the fire. Stoke the fire, Elara ordered, and bring me the chest from under my bed. The locked one. Ren's eyes widened. The one you said never to touch? That one. As her sister hurried to obey, Elara knelt beside the Alpha King and pressed her hand to his forehead. His eyes flickered open, that predator's gaze finding hers with startling clarity despite the fever. He spoke a single word, a question, judging by his tone. I don't understand, she whispered, but I'm going to help you. I promise. His hand lifted, trembling, and his fingers brushed against her cheek. The touch sent warmth cascading through her warmth and something that felt like recognition. Then his eyes rolled back, and he went limp. Alara pressed her ear to his chest. His heartbeat was there, but thready, fading. Not yet, but he will be soon if I can't stop this poison. She turned to the chest and pressed her thumb to the lock. It clicked open, and inside lay the tools she'd sworn never to use again. Crystals humming with stored energy, vials of liquid moonlight, and a pair of silver gloves that glowed faintly. Her mother's legacy, the proof of what Alara truly was. Not just a cursed woman, a witch. Ren. Alara's voice was barely audible. Bar the door, close the shutters, and whatever you see tonight, you must never speak of it. Ren nodded solemnly. The secret thing, like Mama used to do. Yes, exactly like Mama used to do. She placed her gloved hands over the spreading wound and reached for the light within herself. But the moment her power touched his flesh, something pushed back. Darkness. Alive and hungry and far older than any poison she'd ever encountered. And beneath it, coiled like a sleeping beast, a second power, wild, ancient, unmistakably not human. The wolf was waking up. The candles had burned to stubs by the time Alara finally sat back, gasping. Her power had fought the darkness for hours, pushing back the crimson veins inch by inch, while the hungry poison tried to consume both her magic and the man beneath her hands. She'd never felt anything like it, an intelligence behind the corruption, a malevolent will that seemed to recognize her interference and resent it. But she'd won, or at least, achieved a stalemate. The wound still pulsed with sickly light, but it had stopped spreading. His fever had broken sometime around midnight. Now Theron slept, his breathing deep and even. Alara? Ren's voice came from the corner. You should rest. Soon. She couldn't bring herself to move. Her muscles ached, her head pounded. Her power felt drained to its dregs, but something held her there, some instinct that whispered she shouldn't break contact. She studied his face in the firelight. Asleep, with the lines of pain smoothed away. He looked younger than she'd first thought. 30, perhaps. High cheekbones caught the flickering light, and his lips, surprisingly full for such a harsh face, were slightly parted. He really was handsome and dangerous, and currently lying unconscious in her home. What have I done? She'd spent her mother's entire inheritance on a dying wolf king. She'd exposed her forbidden magic to save him. And in doing so, she'd made an enemy of Lord Aldrich. Alara carefully removed her gloves. Then, almost without meaning to, she reached out and brushed a strand of dark hair from his forehead. His eyes snapped open. Not amber this time. Gold. Pure, molten gold, blazing like twin suns in the dim cottage. Before Alara could react, his hand shot up to grip her wrist, not painfully, but with irresistible strength. His other hand found the back of her neck, and suddenly she was being pulled toward him, drawn into an embrace that felt nothing like an attack and everything like a homecoming. She should have struggled, should have screamed for Ren to run. But the warmth flooding through her from every point of contact was intoxicating, overwhelming. This was light. This was life. His face buried itself in the curve of her neck. Alara froze. She felt him inhale deeply, drawing her scent into his lungs, felt the rumble of something that might have been words vibrating against her throat. I don't understand what's happening, she managed. He pulled back just enough to look at her, those blazing golden eyes searching her face with intensity that left her breathless. Then he spoke, his voice rough with fever and something deeper. Mate. The word struck her like lightning. She knew that word. Knew what it meant in the old stories about wolf clans and their sacred bonds. No, she whispered. That's not we can't. But Theron wasn't listening. His gaze had dropped to her lips, and that rumbling sound was building in his chest again. When he kissed her, it wasn't gentle. It was claiming, possessing. His mouth slanted over hers with a desperation that spoke of instinct rather than thought. One hand tangled in her hair while the other pressed flat against her back, holding her so close she couldn't tell where she ended, and he began. And Alara, who had spent 15 years untouched and untouchable, who had resigned herself to a life of isolation and loneliness, kissed him back. The world narrowed to sensation. The heat of his skin, the taste of his lips, and the sound of his ragged breathing mingling with her own. Magic sparked between them, hers and his, light and darkness weaving together into something neither could control. Then she felt his teeth at her throat. The first graze of sharp points against her pulse sent ice through her veins. Memory crashed back the old stories, the claiming bites, the bonds that could kill as easily as save. Wait, too late. Pain pierced through the haze as his teeth sank into the junction of her neck and shoulder. Elara screamed, but even as agony lanced through her, something else followed. Fire. Not the fire of destruction, but of transformation, racing through her blood. Then the fire became an inferno. Her body convulsed as power, both hers and his, crashed through her system. She was vaguely aware of Theron's arms tightening around her, his voice speaking urgently in that liquid language. The last thing she saw before consciousness fled was his face above her, golden eyes wide with horror as he realized what he'd done. Elara woke to pain, not the sharp agony of the bite, but something deeper, a bone-level ache that made her whimper when she tried to move. "Don't try to sit up." The voice was Ren's, thick with exhaustion and relief. Elara forced her eyes open to find her sister's face hovering above her. "How long?" "2 days." Ren's lower lip trembled. "You screamed and screamed, and then you just stopped. I thought you were dead." "I'm here." Elara reached up to touch her sister's cheek. "I'm alive." But even as she spoke, her hand drifted to her neck. Her fingers found raised flesh, a scar, still tender, in the shape of teeth marks. "Where is he?" Ren's expression shifted. "He hasn't left your side. Not once. He growls at me if I try to move you." Elara turned her head and found Theron sitting cross-legged on the floor beside her pallet. He looked different, still enormous, still imposing, but the feral edge was gone. His lupine gaze met hers with profound relief. "You're awake," he said. Elara stared at him. "You speak my language." "I speak many languages. Yours came to me while you slept, through the bond." "The bond," Elara repeated flatly. "You mean the one you created when you attacked me?" Theron flinched. "I did not mean—" He stopped, jaw tightening. "In my fever, I thought you were a dream. The wolf spirit took control, and when I sensed what you were— What I am? A witch? So your wolf decided to claim me without my consent? A healer. A true healer. My kind's most sacred gift." His voice dropped low. "The wolf recognized you before I did, but I never intended." "Get out, Elara." I said get out. All the fear and confusion of the past days crashed over her. "You had no right. Whatever this bond is, I didn't choose it." Slowly, Theron rose to his feet. "You're right," he said quietly. "I had no right, and I will spend the rest of my life atoning for what the wolf took from you." He moved toward the door, his movements stiff with something that might have been pain or grief. "But know this, the claiming bite should have killed you. For humans, it always does." Elara's anger stuttered. "What? My people's magic is not meant for human bodies. When a wolf claims a human mate, the human dies. Always. Without exception." He turned just enough for her to see his profile, the stark anguish in his expression. "You should be dead right now. The fact that you survived, that you're awake and speaking, means something changed. Something that has never happened before in the history of my kind." He stepped through the doorway and vanished into the morning mist. Elara stared after him, her fury draining away and leaving hollow confusion in its wake. She looked down at her hands, the same hands that had always brought darkness with every touch, and noticed, for the first time, the faint golden veins now running beneath her skin. "Elara?" Ren's voice was very small. "Your eyes. They just flickered." "Flickered how?" "Gold. Like his." Before Elara could respond, a howl rose from the forest. It was joined by another, then another, until the air seemed to vibrate. Not threatening, not hunting, mourning. Theron's pack. They'd been waiting this whole time. Through the strange new connection humming beneath her skin, she felt the echo of his emotions, guilt, grief, and beneath it all, a desperate, terrified hope. The door burst open. Lord Aldrich stood on the threshold, 6 armed men at his back, his smile the cruelest thing Elara had ever seen. "Found you," he said. Dread flooded through Elara. "Lord Aldrich, you have no authority here. This land belongs to my family. I don't need a warrant for harboring a fugitive." Aldrich stepped into the cottage, his men fanning out behind him, swords drawn. "The Wolf King belongs to the crown. You were permitted to purchase his labor, not spirit him away to your witch's hovel." A growl cut through the cottage like thunder. Theron stood in the doorway behind Aldrich's men, transformed from the wounded prisoner she'd purchased. His eyes blazed, his muscles coiled with lethal intent. The veins of crimson poison still marked his side, but he moved as if pain were merely an inconvenience. "You will not touch her," Theron said. "She is under my protection." Aldrich's men stumbled backward, but the magistrate merely smiled. "Protection? You can barely stand, Wolf." They could try. Through their bond, Elara felt Theron's fury, and beneath it, desperate fear. Not for himself. For her. Theron, don't. She placed herself between him and the guards. There are too many of them. I will not let them take you. They're not here for me. They're here for you. She turned to Aldrich. Take him then. Take him and go. Aldrich's eyes narrowed. You think I don't know what you are? What your mother was? The Crown has been hunting witches for generations. Before she could react, his bare hand closed around her wrist. The darkness took her instantly. She was falling, plummeting into the familiar void. But this time, the darkness wasn't empty. She could hear screaming her own voice, Ren's desperate cries, and beneath it all, a howl of pure anguish, then warmth. Hands cupping her face, pulling her back from the abyss, heat flooding through her veins. Alara gasped awake to chaos. The cottage was destroyed. Walls splintered, furniture overturned. In the center stood Theron, but not the man she'd known. His form flickered between human and something massive and fur-covered, his eyes blazing pure gold as he held two of Aldrich's men by their throats. Stop! Alara screamed. Theron, stop! You'll kill them! He turned to her, and for a terrible moment, she wasn't sure he recognized her. Then his gaze dropped to her neck to the claiming mark. Slowly, he released the guards and stepped back. His form stabilized, though his eyes remained gold, and his hands still ended in claws. They hurt you, he said, his voice barely human. They touched you, and you fell. I always fall. That's my curse. She surveyed the destruction. Where's Aldrich? Where's Ren? The little one ran into the forest. And the man who hurt you fled toward the mountains. The mountains? That's wolf territory. Understanding struck. He's going to your people, to tell them what happened here. Theron's silence was answer enough. They'll execute you, won't they? For breaking pack law. His eyes finally met hers. A wolf who claims without consent forfeits his life. It is our oldest law. He moved toward her. But you survived. Perhaps the elders will see. Perhaps? She grabbed his arm, heedless of the claws that still tipped his fingers. You knew this when you bit me. You knew they would kill you. I knew nothing. The wolf acted on instinct, and I... His voice broke. I would take it back if I could. The bite, the bond, all of it. You deserved a choice, and I stole that from you. Alara wanted to rage at him, wanted to scream that he'd destroyed everything that she hadn't asked to be bound to a dying wolf king with a death sentence hanging over his head. But through the bond, she felt his anguish, his genuine, devastating remorse, and beneath it, a love so fierce and unwanted that it made her chest tighten, a love he hadn't chosen any more than she had chosen this curse. We need to find Ren, she said finally. Then we need to run, both of us, as far from here as possible. Theron shook his head slowly. There is nowhere to run. Aldrich will reach my people within days, and when he tells them what I've done. He took her hand and pressed it to his chest, over his heart. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. But the bond between us, if I die, you die too. The claiming ensured it. The full horror of her situation crashed over her. She was bound to a man she barely knew, hunted by a magistrate who wanted her burned, and if the wolf pack executed their king, she would die with him. In the distance, a child's scream pierced the night. Ren! Alara ran for the door, but Theron caught her arm. Wolves, he said grimly. They've already found her. They found Ren at the edge of the northern forest, surrounded by wolves, not attacking, watching. 7 massive beasts formed a loose circle around the girl, their silver pelts gleaming in the moonlight. Don't run, Theron murmured. They won't hurt her unless she runs. But Ren hadn't run. She stood frozen, tears streaming down her cheeks but her feet planted firmly. When she saw Alara, a sob escaped her throat. Alara, they won't let me move. I know, sweetheart. Just stay still. Alara stepped forward, and 3 wolves shifted to block her. Theron, tell them to let me through. I cannot. They're not my wolves. His jaw tightened. They belong to my brother, the one who poisoned me. The largest wolf began to change. Bones cracked and reformed. Fur receded into flesh. Where a beast had stood, a man now rose nearly as tall as Theron, with the same dark hair, but his features were sharp with cruelty. Brother, the stranger said, his smile not reaching his eyes. I thought you'd died in that human cesspit. Imagine my surprise when Lord Aldrich arrived at our gates with such interesting news. Kaelin. Theron stepped in front of Alara, shielding her with his body. Let the child go. She has nothing to do with this. Doesn't she? Kaelin circled them slowly, his movements predatory. She's Pack now, isn't she? The witch's sister, bound by blood to your unlawful mate. His gaze shifted to Alara, and she felt violation in his assessment. A human, You claimed a human. Our father would have torn out your throat himself. Our father is dead. Yes. And you were supposed to join him. Kaylin's pleasant mask slipped, revealing the hatred beneath. That poison took me years to perfect. It should have killed you slowly, painfully, giving me time to consolidate power before anyone knew you were gone. But somehow, you survived. And now I learn that not only are you alive, but you've bound yourself to a witch who can apparently cure the incurable. Alara's mind raced. Kaylin had poisoned his own brother. He'd been planning a coup, a takeover of the pack, and Theron's survival had ruined everything. What do you want? Alara demanded. Direct. I appreciate that. He gestured, and 2 wolves flanked Ren more closely. The Crown has offered a substantial bounty for wolf pelts, particularly alpha pelts, and thanks to Lord Aldrich's alchemical knowledge, I now have the means to deliver them. You're helping humans exterminate our own kind? I'm ensuring my survival. Kaylin spread his hands. The Crown wants wolves dead. Aldrich wants witches burned. I want the throne you stole by being born first. Everyone gets what they want. And me? Alara asked. Aldrich believes your witch blood holds the key to perfecting his poison. He wants to study you. Extensively. I'll die before I help him kill innocent people. You'll die either way. The only question is whether your sister joins you. Kaylin snapped his fingers, and a wolf pressed closer to Ren, jaws inches from her throat. Come willingly, and the child goes free. Don't! Alara lunged forward. I'll come. Just let her go. Alara, no. Theron's grip tightened. The moment you're useful to him, he'll kill her anyway. He'll kill her now if I don't cooperate. Touching, Kaylin interrupted. But I grow tired of this. Take them both. The wolves moved as one. Alara didn't think. She reached for the power inside her, the magic she'd spent years suppressing, and let it explode outward. Light blazed through the clearing, golden and fierce. Every wolf that touched it yelped and scrambled backward. Then the bond pulsed. Something tore inside her chest. She screamed as agony ripped through the connection to Theron. Somehow her magic was attacking him too, burning through the claiming mark. Alara! Theron collapsed beside her, golden veins spreading across his skin. Stop. You have to stop. But she couldn't stop. The magic had its own will now, determined to purge everything it perceived as other, including the man she'd accidentally bound her life to. The last thing she heard was Kaylin's delighted laughter. Oh, this is even better than I'd hoped. Consciousness returned in fragments. Stone beneath her cheek, cold air against her skin, the distant drip of water echoing off unseen walls, and pain a bone-deep ache that pulsed in time with her heartbeat. Alara forced her eyes open. She lay in a cell carved from ancient rock, its walls marked with symbols she didn't recognize, runes that seemed to pulse faintly with their own inner light. Iron bars separated her from a torchlit corridor, and beyond them, she could hear voices speaking in that liquid language Theron used. Theron. The memory crashed back, her magic turning against him, his screams mingling with her own, the bond between them tearing itself apart. She reached for the connection instinctively, searching for his presence, and found only a thin, fraying thread where a rope should have been. He lives. The voice came from beyond the bars. An elderly woman stepped into the torchlight, her silver hair braided with bones and feathers, her amber eyes ancient and knowing. Barely, but he lives. No thanks to you. Where am I? Fenrith Keep, the heart of wolf territory. The old woman studied her with unsettling intensity. I am Morwen, elder of the pack and keeper of the old ways. You are Alara, the human who should be dead. Alara pushed herself upright, wincing at the pain that lanced through her. Where's my sister? Where's Ren? The child is safe. Kaylin's wolves released her at the border as promised. Morwen's expression remained unreadable. He is many things, the traitor prince, but he keeps his bargains. It serves his reputation. Some of the tension drained from Alara's shoulders. Ren was alive. Whatever happened next, at least Ren was alive. And Theron? Awaiting judgment. Morwen moved closer to the bars. May I see the mark? Alara hesitated, then brushed her hair aside to reveal the claiming bite. It's true then. He claimed you, and you survived. Morwen's voice held wonder beneath its severity. In 600 years, I have never seen such a thing. Humans always die from the claiming. Always. So everyone keeps telling me. Alara's hand covered the mark protectively. What does it mean? It means you are not entirely human. Morwen's amber eyes bored into hers. The claiming bite transforms its recipient, awakens the wolf spirit within, but there must be something there to awaken. Your witch blood, it carries the old magic, the same magic that created my kind centuries ago. the same power that first merged human and wolf into something greater than either. Elara stared at her. You're saying I'm part wolf? I'm saying your ancestors were, somewhere in your bloodline, human and wolf merged. The gift was diluted over generations, manifesting as magic rather than transformation. Perhaps that is even the source of your curse. The wolf spirit sleeping inside you, rejecting all touch except that of its own kind. Morwen paused. But it was enough. Enough to survive. Enough to begin the change. What change? You are becoming one of us. The words fell like stones into still water. Slowly, incompletely, because the bond was never finished. Your magic recognized Theron's wolf as kin, and accepted the claiming instead of fighting it. But the transformation stalled when you attacked him. Elara remembered the agony of her power turning against Theron, the bond screaming as it tore apart. Is he dying? Is that what I did to him? You both are dying. Morwen's voice was gentle despite the brutal words. The incomplete bond is consuming you from within. You feel it, yes? The ache that never fades, the sense that something vital has been torn away. Elara nodded, her throat too tight for words. There is only one way to survive. You must complete the transformation. Accept the wolf spirit fully and finish the bond that Theron began. How? But there is a complication. Kaelin has invoked the old law. He demands Theron's execution for claiming without consent. The trial begins at moonrise. And if Theron dies, you die with him. Morwen turned away. I have argued for mercy, but Kaelin has Aldrich's ear, and Aldrich has the crown's resources. They want you both dead. Then let me speak to them. You are human-born. You have no voice in pack law. Morwen paused. But there is another way. An old right. If you reach Theron before the execution and complete the claiming, the bond will be recognized as valid. The law cannot condemn what the spirits have blessed. Tell me what I need to do. Morwen reached through the bars and pressed something cold into Elara's palm, a key. Your cell opens onto the lower tunnels. Follow them until you smell moonlight. You'll find the sacred grove. She stepped back. But even if you reach him, there is no guarantee. The transformation could kill you. You may save his life only to lose your own. I don't care. He's dying because of me. If there's even a chance, then you understand more about the bond than you realize. Morwen's voice drifted from the darkness. Go now. Moonrise comes quickly. Through the tattered bond, Elara felt a pulse of emotion. Theron had felt her determination. His response was a single, desperate command. Don't. She ignored it. The tunnels beneath Fenrith Keep were older than memory. Elara ran through darkness so complete she could taste it. One hand trailing along the damp stone wall, her bare feet slapping against ancient rock. The key Morwen had given her hung on a cord around her neck, its metal warm against her skin. Follow them until you smell moonlight, the elder had said. At first, Elara had thought it was metaphor. Now, as a strange silver scent began to thread through the underground air, she understood. Wolf senses. The transformation had already begun changing her, sharpening perceptions she'd never known she possessed. The bond pulsed weakly in her chest, a dying ember that grew fainter with each passing moment. Through it, she could feel Theron's resignation, his acceptance of death. He'd stopped fighting. Don't you dare, she whispered into the darkness. Don't you dare give up. The tunnel curved upward, and suddenly she could see light ahead, pale and silver, unmistakably moonlight filtering through some unseen opening. Elara pushed herself faster, ignoring the pain in her legs, the burning in her lungs. She emerged into a grove of ancient oaks, their branches twisted together overhead to form a natural cathedral. Moonlight poured through gaps in the canopy, illuminating a scene that stopped her heart. Theron knelt at the center, his wrists bound with chains that glowed with runic symbols. Around him stood dozens of wolves in human form. Kaelin stood before his brother, a curved silver blade in his hand. For the crime of claiming without consent, Kaelin was saying. The sentence is death. No! Elara burst from the tree line. Kaelin's face split into a smile. The witch comes to watch her mate die. How romantic. Hold her. Strong hands seized Elara's arms. Wait, she screamed. The bond, he didn't know what he was doing. Your poison caused this. Accusations require proof. Kaelin turned back to Theron. Any last words, brother? Theron lifted his head. Despite the chains, despite the blade, despite the death sentence, he smiled. I'm sorry I couldn't give you the choice you deserved, but I'm not sorry for the bond itself. His gaze held hers with devastating tenderness. Finding you was the only thing in my life I'd never take back. How touching. Goodbye, brother. The blade began its descent, and something inside Elara shattered. Not broke, shattered. Like a dam finally overwhelmed by the flood it had held back for years. Power erupted from her core, but this time it wasn't the golden light of her witch magic. This was something else entirely. Something wild and ancient and utterly inhuman. The wolves holding her yelped and released her as her skin began to burn with inner fire. Alara fell to her knees, and this time, she didn't fight the agony. She welcomed it. Change me, she thought, prayed, demanded. Whatever I have to become, whatever it costs, change me, her bones answered. The transformation was nothing like the gradual shifts she'd experienced before. This was violent, total, and absolutely excruciating. She felt her spine elongate, her muscles tear and reform, her skull reshape itself around a consciousness that was suddenly, terrifyingly plural. She was Alara. She was also something else, a wolf spirit that had slumbered in her bloodline for generations, finally awakened by desperation and love. When the pain faded, she stood on 4 legs. Her fur was silver white, gleaming like moonlight made solid. Her eyes, she somehow knew, blazed pure gold, and her senses, oh, her senses. She could smell the fear rolling off Kaelin's wolves, could hear Theron's heart pounding in his chest, and could feel the bond between them blazing back to life like a fire-fed fresh kindling. The wolves surrounding the grove had gone utterly still. Even Kaelin had frozen, his blade inches from Theron's throat, his face slack with disbelief. Impossible, he breathed. Humans can't. Alara lunged. She moved faster than thought. One moment she was at the grove's edge. The next, her jaws were locked around Kaelin's wrist, the silver blade spinning away into darkness. Kaelin screamed. He tried to shift, but Alara was already moving again, slamming into his chest, her teeth finding his throat. Not to kill, to dominate. Yield. The word came from her somehow. Yield to your rightful alpha, traitor. Yield or die. His wolves had backed away, gazes lowered in submission. I yield, he whispered. Alara released him. The shift to human form came easier than expected, her body flowing between shapes like water. When she stood upright again, she felt the pack's attention shift. To her, she walked to where Theron still knelt in chains. When she reached him, she sank to her knees so their faces were level. You told me not to come. I didn't want you to die for me, and I didn't want to live without you. She cupped his face, and he leaned into her touch with a shuddering breath. The bond goes both ways, Theron. You claimed me, now I'm claiming you. She kissed him, not the desperate, fever-driven kiss from the cottage, but something deeper. A promise, a choice freely made. When she pulled back, she tilted her head to bare, her throat then stopped. No, not that way. Instead, she pressed her lips to the spot where his neck met his shoulder. I choose you, she whispered against his skin. Not because of magic or instinct or fate, because you protected my sister, because you tried to give me freedom, because you were willing to die rather than see me hurt. She drew back to meet his eyes. I choose you, Theron Varric. Do you accept? His answer was a single word, broken with emotion. Yes. Alara bit down. His blood flooded her mouth, hot and copper bright, and the bond exploded into completion. She felt his consciousness merge with hers, not consuming, not controlling, but joining. 2 souls becoming one. When she released him, the chains around his wrists crumbled to dust. Theron surged to his feet, pulling her up with him, and his arms wrapped around her with desperate strength. She buried her face in his chest, breathing in his scent, her scent now, the smell of pack and home and belonging. Around them, the wolves of Fenrith began to howl, not in mourning this time, in celebration. Morwen's voice rose above the chorus, ancient and commanding. The bond is complete. The spirits have blessed this union. By the old laws, these 2 are mated Alpha King and Alpha Queen. Any who challenge their right, step forward now. Silence. Even Kaelin remained on his knees, his wounded wrist cradled against his chest, his ambitions shattered beyond repair. Then it is done. Morwen approached them, her weathered face softening into something almost like warmth. Welcome to the pack, daughter. You have a great deal to learn. I know. Alara lifted her head from Theron's chest, looking out at the assembled wolves, her people now. But I'm ready. Theron's hand found hers, their fingers intertwining. Through the bond, she felt his joy, his relief, his overwhelming love, and beneath it all, a fierce, protective pride. My queen, he murmured against her hair. My heart, my choice. Alara smiled, feeling the wolf spirit settle contentedly into her soul beside the witch magic that had always been there. She had spent her entire life untouchable, cursed to fall at every human contact. Now she stood in a grove of ancient oaks, surrounded by wolves, bonded to a king, and more alive than she had ever been. She was home at last. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed the story. If you'd like to listen on the go, all my stories are also available on Spotify, under your channel name. You'll find the link in the description below. A big thank you to everyone who's subscribed. Your support truly means the world to me.